Right, seems you're all here. I'll formally open the meeting and start by welcoming the parents and staff and the children from Victoria Village School and the representatives from Bryntaig Nursery. Welcome to the meeting. I hope you enjoy, or at least listen to the members presenting the various cases. Please turn off all mobile phones and recording devices during the meeting. There's no need for filming from the gallery, as this meeting is being webcast and can be viewed on Torfaen County Borough Council's website. I hope everybody takes note of that and takes that last comment seriously. I intend to bring item 11 to the front, and so we'll deal with item 11 first, because there's a number of substantial items on this agenda which would take at least an hour to get to, and I don't want people to sit there going through all that. So we'll bring item 11 first and start. So can I call on John Tushingham, who's going to put the case.
Excuse me, Leader. Leader, should we just do declarations of interest beforehand, which is what we normally do? Yes. I think in the item just to come now, item 11, I think Councillor Clark, you're a council-appointed governor for Garnteg and Abersychan, so you have to declare personal interest, but you are still allowed under the code to stay and take part in the debate. Is that agreed?
Thank you, Linda. That's agreed.
And Leader, I think you decided to make a prejudicial interest in the very last item. And the nature of that interest, Leader?
My grandson, his girlfriend, is a daughter of the person that's mentioned in that item.
Yes, Leader, so you declare prejudicial interest and withdraw for that item.
Right.
Thank you both.
All right, we got that. Now then, John Tushingham.
Thank you, Leader. This agenda item has got three specific purposes to it. Firstly, to consider the outcome of the consultation exercise on proposals to discontinue Abersychan Bryntaig Nursery and Victoria Primary Schools at the end of the 2016-2017 academic year. To determine the next steps in relation to these schools, and following the conclusion of the earlier consultation exercise, determine the next steps in relation to the proposals previously considered in relation to Comfredore and Garnteg primary schools, and to consider whether to proceed to the publication of statutory notices in relation to the above aforementioned the four schools. Just a reminder then, in 2015 July, sorry, you have to excuse me, I'm a left-handed mouse user, and this is a right-handed mouse. In July 2015, we reported on the proposed expansion and refurbishment of Comfredore and Garnteg schools, and were able to report that the funding approval had been given in principle by Welsh Government. In light of that position, members accepted that we could then, because we had a realistic proposal to engage upon, we needed to start the consultation proposals for the discontinuation of Abersychan Bryntaig Nursery and Victoria. Without that approval for funding for the expansions, it would not have been possible to bring forward the discontinuation proposals. We would have to look again at a provision in the north. So in terms of the discontinuation, the consultation process is outlined in paragraph section 5. It ran from Thursday the 12th of November until Monday the 4th of January. There are details at the bottom of that page, 5.2, of the meetings that took place. We publicised a consultation document which was done in accordance with the School Organisation Code that was introduced in 2013 by Welsh Government. that invited views on the proposals. As part of the process, specific consultation was also undertaken with children and young people. The purpose of the consultation document is to provide the contextual information to allow people to understand why we're bringing proposals forward, what specifically those proposals are, and to give people an opportunity to provide comment if they so wish to do so. It was widely publicised, as is normal with these types of exercises. In section 6, we talk about key issues. We have a file of all of the submissions that were received that was lodged in the members' room week before last, so all members, not just Cabinet members, have had an opportunity to go through that file. We've also made that information publicly available for this consultation. It was specifically requested, and we've put that onto the website so everybody can see everything that everybody said. The difference with the information that's been made publicly available is we've just had to remove some personal details for data protection purposes. Following the consultation, it was necessary to produce a consultation report, and the consultation report is what we're bringing to you today. Again, that's in accordance with the School Organisation Code. And the purpose of that document is detailed in section 6.3. Its purpose is to summarise the issues raised, to respond to the issues raised, and specifically to provide comments from ESTIN, who are one of the statutory consultees, and you will appreciate from your involvement with ESTIN in the past that they are a critical contributor when it comes to school organisation proposals. So at paragraph 6.6 we provide the headlines really from the consultation, but at that point it's probably appropriate that I take you directly to the appendices, which is the consultation document, consultation report. I don't propose to go through every single question and every single answer in this document unless you wish me to do so, but I do think it would be helpful if I provided some comments on some of the issues, some of the more significant perhaps issues that were raised with us during consultation. So looking firstly at pages 5 through to 7, there were questions raised with us about school performance, about educational outcomes, about whether or not it was our view that what would result from these proposals would provide at least equal to, if not better than, provision in the future. We said in the original consultation document, we provided information to back up what we said, that we thought it would. And that information is in the public domain for everybody to see. Since the consultation document itself was published and this report was put together, we've also now got ESTIN's view on whether or not they believe that these proposals will at least maintain, if not improve, educational provision and outcomes in the area. And that's confirmed further into the consultation report, which I'll come to later on, but essentially they do agree. We move to pages 7 to 10. There were a lot of comments that came in around building condition and maintenance. Cabinet's no stranger to the issues regarding building condition and maintenance in this borough. Councils across Wales are no stranger to similar issues in their own areas. We were expected, as were all councils of Wales in 2010, 2011, to put together a strategic programme that dealt with the issues that we've got, to formulate a programme and to submit that to Welsh Government. Council, it was Council, not just Cabinet, consulted on a wide range of options and proposals before submitting its programme in November 2011, and that programme was approved in principle by Welsh Government at that time. In summary, we're rationalising aspects of our school estate and investing in our school estate, and that investment is taking place in some existing buildings, and in some cases it's taking place in the form of new builds. It's important to stress that none of these schools are falling down. There are issues with all of them. All of them would benefit from investment, and the proposals that we've put forward, we believe, are to make the best of the estate that we have. We look then at pages 10 to 11. There were questions and issues raised with us about school capacity and numbers on roll, catchment areas and admissions. A significant part of the overall programme and the challenge that was issued to us by Welsh Government is to keep a handle on surplus places and in the first instance to reduce them. The programme to date has largely concentrated in Band A of our programme to remove surplus places. We provided information in the consultation document about the population statistics and the fact that in the north of the borough the population is still in decline overall. And Cabinet need to recognise, as I'm sure they do, that we're not looking at balancing supply and demand in one school, we're looking at balancing it across the school estate, and in this case, in the area of North Torfaen. We have to come up with a programme, which we did, which we believe will make best use of what we have. It will enable us to manage surplus places, and overall, the estate will be more efficient at the end. It is a challenge. And it's a challenge that to date has resulted in a number of school closures across the borough. I think that the next significant group of questions is around pages 11 and 12 and 14 to 16, and they're related to traffic congestion, environmental impact and safe walking routes. We accept that for some learners it will not be possible to establish a safe walking route to school. The very nature of the topography in that area and the layout of the streets and the absence of pavements in some places means that I'm not going to sit here and tell you we will be able to establish a safe route for every child. But that's similar across many parts of the borough, and that's why we've got a transport policy that dictates that if we can't establish a safe route, then we have to provide free school transport. Now, some will say that's not ideal. We're not in the world of the ideal here. We're trying to balance a number of different pressures. And if we have to provide some transport, the question is, does that outweigh the need to make a change to our estate for the other reasons that are included in the reports? I hope that at least by saying that we will provide free school transport where there is no safe route, it will at least provide some assurances to parents that we take the responsibility for children's safety seriously. If the decision to close goes ahead, we have to have another consultation. This time it's a consultation around safe routes, and that takes place when you know which children will be going, in this case, predominantly to Garntegg School. We can't do it before then because we don't know which children will be going to Garntegg School. So it takes place when we know who. And in the meantime, the consultation report includes some of the things that will factor in as we go into that conversation, things like schools' travel plan, things like the investment in safe routes in the communities in the area, which is moving ahead again in the Aberystwyth area over the next 12 months and beyond. The next section I thought would be useful to pick up is in the consultation and decision-making process. So it's around pages 16 to 19. I think that the most significant question here was why were we advancing Brynteg Nursery now, when originally it was in Band B? And the responses in the report, we think it makes sense to advance that now because it's a feeder school for Victoria and there's alternative provision within the area. We did undertake consultation on Comfredor and Garnteg first, and that caused some consternation amongst some. But again, I repeat what I said a few minutes ago. If we did not have funding in principle approval from Welsh Government, the closure proposals, the discontinuation proposals would not be coming forward as they have done. And there's a significant issue in that. In the past, when we've presented reasons why we wanted to close a school, we've been criticised for not being able to guarantee that we could deliver what we were saying. In this case, we couldn't deliver what we said we were going to do by way of alternative provision unless we knew we got the funding to do it. I'd like to just draw your attention now to pages 19 and 20. During the course of the consultation and resulting, I suspect, from conversations we had with people about ideas that they may have for an alternative to what was being proposed, an alternative proposal was submitted. The reasons why, as officers, we don't believe that the alternative proposal is viable could be summarised really in one short sentence, although there's more in the consultation report. The Victoria site has very limited development potential. In 2010, 2011, when the Council was looking across all of its estates, it was a policy decision that we would reduce the number of schools which were less than 315 places. These proposals fall out of that policy decision. And on the Victoria site, to even put a nursery on that site, so if the Abersoch and Brynteg nursery were to go on that site, we think that it would constitute overdevelopment. To try to increase the capacity of the school to 315 or above, we simply don't believe is possible. Again, the strategic approach to managing and developing the Council's estate is at the very root of the 21st Century Schools programme, and we think that the proposal that's been put forward is the best way to achieve that. So take you now to page 22, 24, which are around transitional arrangements. We don't underestimate the impact that decisions like this can have, particularly on young people. And we understand that people will want assurances. We have got a good track record as a council, working with all of those involved around proposals such as this to ensure a smooth transition from one setting to another. And that's something that head teachers, staff and council employees together have worked on in previous examples, and I see no reason why that won't apply in this example if it goes ahead.
No comments from the gallery, please, because we don't intend to get engaged in a dialogue with the gallery. You're in a very serious manner considering this report. Carry on, John.
Okay. So the assurance that we can give, and we can evidence from previous examples, is that transition will be taken very seriously, and a lot of effort will go into making sure that it happens to children's best advantage. Page 24 and 26 in the consultation report, and the issue of the impact on the wider community is referenced. It's quite clear that the schools, both schools, are held in high regard. Thankfully, most of our schools are held in high regard. We can't see any reason why the community can't galvanise around the alternative provision. And in terms of its impact on the wider community, we don't see that that is a significant factor. I'll take you to pages 27 and 28. Clearly, one significant aspect of this proposal is around early years provision and the Aberystwyth and Bryntegg Nursery. We are satisfied that with the mix of private, voluntary, independent and council-run providers, we will have supply which matches that which is identified by our childcare sufficiency audit assessment. If you then go to page 30-31, I mentioned before that Estyn are a significant contributor to this process. Their response quite rightly says that there's an expectation that proposals will at least maintain, if not improve, provision. That is what their response confirms, that they say. I'll read it direct from the report. It's Estyn's opinion that the proposal is likely to at least maintain the current standards of education and provision in the area. The proposal is unlikely to have a negative impact on any of the schools or education provider in the area. There are further sections in the report which cover the consultation exercise that was undertaken with children in both settings. And that was run by the playgroup. There are notes of meetings that took place, 6 public meetings that took place with staff, governing bodies, parents and other interested stakeholders. So I'm happy to answer questions, but I just want to perhaps go through the recommendations before opening up to those questions. Section 10.1 of the report sets out that if members are minded to approve the report, then the next step would be to publish statutory notices to discontinue Victoria Primary School with the dispersal of pupils to neighbouring schools, predominantly Garntay Primary School, with effect from the 1st of September 2017. To publish statutory notices to discontinue Aberystwyth and Bryntegg Nursery School with the effect from 1st of September 2017. To publish statutory notices to extend Garntay Primary School with the new extended provision available with effect from the 1st of September 2017. To publish statutory notices to extend Comfredor Primary School and at the same time increase the age range from 4 to 11 to 3 to 11 to provide nursery provision. And that provision, an extended provision, to be available with effect from the 1st of September 2017. To make adjustments to the catchment areas and for Cabinet to receive a further report in March, April of this year following the publication of those notices. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for that report. And can I thank you, Anne Dermot, and the other members of the education staff that have had an input into this. It's been a long task. Right then, I'm going to open it up for debate now, and I think in the first instance, I'll call on you.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'm going to pick you up on something you just said before I even start on what I need to say. You don't think it's going to be a significant factor? For goodness sake, this will destroy our community if this closure goes through. Aberystwyth will be a place that you pass through to get to somewhere else. We have a vibrant community. It will be a significant factor if the school closes. I've made my views known on previous information provided. I've now seen and read all the documents and the consultation. I've taken all those factors into consideration. I was prepared to change my mind should the arguments that I'd heard before then were convincing and your report was convincing. They are not, and my objection remains the same as it was then. Can I just take you to Bryntegg Nursery? I do need to go through a number of points, but I'm going to raise the point on Bryntegg Nursery first. I want to talk about this because this is the only standalone nursery in the authority. It's considered jewel in the crown. You've heard me say that many times in this building. This is because of the excellent leadership and staff and the support staff. Brinteg Nursery Governing Body, for which I'm one, have realised for some time that we have struggled over the years with children coming into nursery. That trend is now getting better. We're seen more children come through the nursery doors. So to close Brinteg Nursery would certainly be an absolute crime. Can I take you to page 173 in the maintenance backlog? I'll give you a minute to find that page. Okay, I note from that report that the capital investment for Wales was insufficient to manage the decline of school buildings. But you haven't answered the question in relation to why, in the case of Brinteg Nursery and Victoria Village School, the lack of backlog in both of these have been allowed to build up. When in other junior and infant schools in the borough, not affected by the possibility of closure, have all the capital money been spent on them? Perhaps you can give me a breakdown of how many junior and infant schools have had capital money spent on them over the last 4 years.
Have you got that data with you?
Should we leave it and I'll go through and I expect you to come back with the answers then?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. Safe routes to school. My ward colleagues and I have been working with the Safe Routes to School officer, Patrick Bakes, over the last few years. And though this has proved very successful in relation to parts of our ward, it would be more difficult, if not impossible, and you've just mentioned that, to get the children from Brinteg Nursery and Victoria School to any other school safely. It's just not possible with the Victorian roads in the north of the borough, and certainly true of Abersuckham ward. And don't take my word for it, ask the Community Safety Routes Officer. He will confirm this. I do thank the members that walked that route. It was much appreciated, and I'm sure you realise how difficult the journey would be. Even if a free bus was available, and you've just mentioned that, it would still be problematic for those children who have a valid reason, would have to miss the morning session. How are they going to get to school? Perhaps they would have to take the day off and lose valuable education. Can I ask you to go to page 125? The alternative to closure. On December the 3rd, at Victoria Village consultation meeting, in relation to a question, you said, and it probably was Dermot McChrystal, I'm going to quote what was said. What I'm saying is the proposal that we have put to Council and the community is that this school does close and other schools expand. However, in any consultation, it's absolutely legitimate for the consultees to come back and say, hey, hang on a minute, that isn't the best proposal, this one is. And really importantly, these are the reasons why it's a better solution for our children. So, if through the consultation process there is a body of evidence that comes in and Council figures, hang on, that's a better solution, they can then take that option, unquote. I only received this alternative document about 5-6 weeks ago. I also posted copies to other members at the time. How on earth can officers come to the conclusions when I and other members haven't had time to look at the site, look at the alternatives proposed in this document? We are in no position to dismiss the alternative unless we can honestly say we have done these things. And you haven't. We haven't. Thoroughly look at the alternative. And yes, there might be obstacles, for goodness sake, but let's look at it. After all, it was you, it was officers that encouraged parents and governors to come back with an alternative, which they, to their credit, they've done in a very professional way. Can we now go to page 196, Eston response? The proposal demonstrates likely funding savings by not paying the backlog of required works at Brinteg Nursery School and Victoria Village. I think we're now beginning to see the picture and understand why you haven't spent the money on these buildings. They also go on to say the impact on traffic in other schools would be horrendous. I can tell you at first hand we have already had major problems at the walk-in entrance at Garnteg on Top Road and even worse at the vehicle entrance on Hillcrest. I realise you'll tell me these problems are mirrored in other schools throughout the borough, but with the possibility of increased traffic, it will become even greater in these two areas I've just mentioned. You have to explain to me and to parents who are listening the reference to the clawback to the Welsh Government if the closure doesn't go ahead at Victoria School and Brinteg Nursery. Our Assembly members stated at the parents' meeting this is not the case and that the responsibility lies with the Council. It's their responsibility, it's our responsibility. The children in Aberystwyth Ward should never be made scapegoats to allow for the 21st Century School programme to succeed. You can't allow this to happen. Children like Zach and his classmates, they deserve better. They've written to every member of the Council, and we owe it to them to consider seriously the effect this will have on them and their peers should the vote continue with the closure programme. There are no surplus places at the school. It's a good school with excellent results. Brinteg Nursery, a warm, caring nursery where children receive the very best start on their educational journey. I'm going to ask my fellow members to consider the recommendation before you and to vote against it, or even to delay your decision until you've seriously looked and considered the alternative to closure.
Thank you for that, Gwenna. I know you've done a lot of work personally and a lot of research personally. Right, I'm going to open it up to members now. Dermot, sorry, answer those questions.
Okay, there's a number of things there. I'd like to come back to Councillor Clark and Cabinet Tom. Just in terms of Brinteg Nursery being the only standalone nursery, that's quite right. And this council took a policy decision in 2011 that it would not have standalone nurseries in the future. Which is why this proposal in part is here today. In terms of capital, since the introduction of the 21st Century Schools programme, the Council's capital, almost the entirety of the Council's capital has gone into education, and that capital has been spent on the creation of Cumberland High School, in the early stages of the 3 new primary schools that are being built, and that's it. The other expenditure that's taken place to date has been revenue, not capital. The revenue has been made up in parts of prudential borrowing, which we've used some amounts to facilitate earlier school closures, things like work at George Street, Nankellin, Pennygarn. Schools have an element of schools maintenance money. Granted, it's small. So in direct response to your question, how many schools? Well, all schools will have had some revenue maintenance monies to spend. In terms of the other spend that's taken place, then I don't hold that information. That's in neighbourhood services who deal with the property maintenance. But if the question or the assertion is that schools have been allowed to decay, I wouldn't accept that. What I would say, and this was in a conversation that we've had with representatives of both Aberystwyth and Brinteg Nursery and Victoria Primary before, the Council will not invest in repairs other than to make wind watertight and safe if a school is scheduled for closure, but this school isn't scheduled for closure, nor is the nursery. The decision hasn't been taken yet.
So why hasn't the repairs been undertaken then?
In terms of safe routes and the conversation, I made comment. I don't really have anything to add to what was previously said on that. In terms of the alternative proposal, I think you said we haven't, as officers, looked at this proposal seriously. I can assure you that we have. We have looked at it seriously, and that's why we're able to comment. The development potential of that site is so limited that we could not increase the capacity to 315 or above and get the nursery on site or get the nursery on site. And that's why, largely, we're saying that that proposal could not be developed to the point where Cabinet would have a realistic alternative to consider. In terms of Estin's response, I think that relates back to the maintenance issue, and they're making an observation purely on the information that was provided in the original consultation documents. Access at Garnteg, you're quite right, access is an issue around a lot of our schools. That doesn't help in terms of people's frustration about this particular proposal, but we haven't gone into this blindly. We've had a traffic impact assessment done. That assessment shows that it should be possible for the infrastructure in that area to cope with additional pressure. You asked then about clawback, and I'm quite happy to provide you and Cabinet, indeed the public at large, with a copy of the letter that was given sent from Welsh Government, which was the approval in principle of the business justification cases for Comfredor and for Garnteg. But if it's helpful now, I can explain what the clawback reference refers to, and that's if we were to go ahead with development extension at those two schools, we would be adding capacity into the system. We would be adding seats into the schools. If we don't, correspondingly, take out some places, then we are not managing our surplus places, and it's on that basis that Welsh Government said that they would look to claw back any money that they gave us for Garnteg and Comfredor if we didn't manage the surplus places. So this is a case of not wishing to spend money that we could ultimately have to pay back. That's why you have the closure proposals in front of you today. I think that probably covers most of the issues.
If I can just reiterate what I've said, nothing that you've said have convinced me other than, I would ask members to vote against this. But what I would say to you now is the answer is not for alleviating any problems with children not filling school places. It's not the answer, closing Victoria School. Because what will happen, you'll extend Garnteg and other schools, and further down the line, in a few years to come, you will see the parents made their own choice and have sent them to other schools rather than the two schools you've identified. So you're not going to alleviate any of the problems that you've mentioned here today, and in fact, it's going to create even more problems for the children and even longer journeys. So I would certainly ask you to really seriously consider what's proposed today, and certainly vote against it, and keep this community school in the heart of the community where it belongs.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that, Gwynaira. Anthony, have you got a comment to make?
Just a couple of quick questions. Just first, none of us take our responsibilities lightly in this matter, for all children around the borough. And I'm sure we've all read and reread the documents and the emails and letters we've been sent on it as well. So with that in mind, I've got a couple of questions for some clarity, one about welfare and one about standards. First, I'm drawn to the Estin response at page 30, and just wondered if there was a bit more detail that you could give us on that. And secondly, it's a question on welfare, really. I was struck and slightly concerned about the number of children raising concerns about bullying and other aspects. you've gone part way to reassure me in your presentation initially about what we're going to do to ensure that we've got a zero tolerance approach to bullying, and that we learn from our previous experiences of what's best to help, this goes ahead, ease children into a new school environment. But I just wondered if you could sort of expand on that, especially given the strong ethos that's been shown, I think, by the campaign, the community ethos in the school. And similarly on the sort of the point of welfare, what sort of promises or commitments we can give to staff at the school about their future in any reorganised situation in that part of the valley.
John?
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. I think a lot of the, I can't speak for Eston, but I can speak for where we drew our confidence that these proposals would at least maintain provision in the area comes down to relative performance of schools. We presented information in the consultation document about that. Just recently, the national categorisations have come out, which place Garnteg School in a very positive light. The fact is that Garnteg School has demonstrated in the past its capacity to bring learners on and to look after their welfare. And we have to demonstrate that the alternative provision is going to be as equal to or better than what's there already. It's not a comment about current provision, it's about the alternative provision. And I think, our view is swayed very heavily by the respective positions of the schools. Garnteg is a good school, and we think that it will benefit learners in the long run. Just in terms of welfare is something that I think all schools take seriously. And again, talking about the alternative provision, which is what we have to really convince people is suitable alternative provision. Garnteg has a very good reputation for looking after its children, and we see no reason why that shouldn't continue. Transition is a very significant process in these types of proposals. Starts early, it lasts beyond the point at which changes are actually implemented, and its entire purpose is to make sure that we watch out for all of the children. There are some who will need more support than others. There's a big change just in terms of having different friendship groups. There are some people who might find it more difficult going to a new environment, and we look to support that. There will be some pupils who will have needs that will need specific attention. They're getting it where they are now, and we need to make sure that that isn't adversely affected by the change. So it really is a huge activity that involves, say, head teachers, staff from present schools and future provision. Staff is not as straightforward as perhaps it would have been in the past. In the past, we have successfully managed to redeploy those staff who wanted to be redeployed. It is a fact that as you reduce the number of schools, the opportunities reduce, but we still hope that it will be possible to redeploy those staff who wish to be redeployed if these decisions go forward. We've been very clear in the consultation process with governing bodies who quite rightly have got an interest in this, with the staff themselves, that we can't make any promises, because until you actually get to the point of having a decision which needs to be implemented and the schools that will be receiving schools start to consider their staffing structure, it simply isn't possible to give a cast-iron guarantee of a job. But there are staff in the nursery, there are staff in Victoria Village School who we believe it will be possible to meet their expectations in terms of their future careers.
Right, thank you for that, John. Is that okay, Anthony? No, right. John Cunningham.
Can I say, Chairman, I think that reference should certainly be made to the letters and the emails that we've received from numerous people. I think many of them are quite genuine and quite passionate about what they believe in. Some, of course, were a little direct and a little extreme. But there we are. We read them all. I think we've considered them all. And I think this really formed part of the very comprehensive consultation process that took place. But some of the correspondents have suggested that there were so-called discrepancies and there were criticisms about the process and concerns about the alternative proposals. I wonder, John, whether you could elaborate on any of these.
Without sight of what the specific discrepancies are, that might prove a little bit difficult, but what I can assure you is that we have executed a proposal in accordance with the School Organisation Code, which is what is used across Wales for school reorganisation proposals. We have published information in accordance with that code. We have provided the opportunity for people to let us have their views, their comments. We've produced a consultation report in accordance with the code, which provides both the issues raised with us and our responses to those issues. And outside of that, I'm happy that we've run a proper process. In terms of the alternative proposal, I don't really have a great deal else to add to what I said previously. We have considered that proposal. I can't give you an alternative view on our belief that it is not viable.
Right then, Lewis.
Yes, it's a little over 7 or 8 months since Pontywenid school closed, and quite a few of the pupils from Pontywenid then went to Victoria. Now, while I totally support the concept of 21st century education, our highways are anything but 21st century. Consequently, I've had quite a bit of representation from people who have sent their children from Pontywenid to Victoria, you know, concerned about the route to Garnteg. And I lived in Torfaen all my life, you know, and I didn't have the opportunity to walk on the day of the walk because I couldn't make it. I had a hospital appointment. But I'm totally familiar with the state of the highways, not only to Garnteg but to Cumfredo as well. So, you know, it is a real serious complaint about the access. And before I could vote on such a proposal, I'd need to be assured that everything is being done for safe routes to school. Other than that, proper transport provision. Thanks.
John?
I hope I've given those assurances in what I've said today. The issues for some children is accepted. I fully anticipate that we will not be able to provide an accessible, safe route because of the absence of pavements in some areas. Where that's the case, we'll provide transport. And in terms of the access at Garnteg, again, there are issues which to some extent will be helped by what's proposed in terms of development on the site. So there's an area in front of the school, for example, that's currently got some hedges and trees, will be coming out for additional parking. But the traffic impact assessment suggests that the highways infrastructure can cope.
Right.
In terms of Cumfredo, if people have seen the plans for that, there is a specific drop-off area that's been designed outside of the school, which will alleviate a lot of the pressures on the main approach to the school, which members will know is on a bend. And again, traffic impact assessment says with what's been proposed in terms of the development of that site and off-site for the drop-off point, that will mean that it's capable to advance this proposal without putting undue pressure on the highway network.
Thank you, John. Richard Clark?
I don't have a question as such, but rather observations. If I did have a question, it would be on the generality of the 21st Century School Programme. The Council committed itself to that, and I suppose my question on that specific point would would be, are we still committed to that? I firmly believe yes. I realise as we go along the steps of that, there are individual issues with schools, and members of the public rightly express their concerns about those, and the members who make the decisions don't make those so lightly. I haven't done so in the past, I won't do so in the future, and I won't do so today. I've taken considerable time to read the submissions, the ones written to me and emailed to me directly, and the files that have been put into the members' room. They are very emotive, they are very passionate, and I believe they're heartfelt and genuine. They express the concerns of children, pupils, teachers, and the local community in itself. I have viewed the alternative scheme. Gwenaira quite rightly points out I'm not in a position to evaluate it. I believe yourself and your fellow officers are, and I'm aware of what you've put in that report. If it was for a quick fix, a short-term solution, and saves us money, perhaps I would put my hands up to it. However, I think we have a duty as a Cabinet and a Council and our principals of 21st Century School to look at the wider picture, to look at education, primary education in this area as a whole, and we have a responsibility to present and future generations to provide viable and sustainable primary education in that area and throughout the county borough. I don't think the alternative proposal provides that. I do believe that what is proposed do that, and on the benefit of the future and present generations, I will have to support this today.
Would you like to walk to school up there every day?
Thank you for that, Richard. I did say at the onset of this that there would be no recording and no filming. Mr Simpson, if you are recording or filming, or your colleague, please stop. Now then, the next one, you've been told before the meeting started. I shouldn't have to go through this. David. David, the Cabinet Member for Education.
Before I start to say what I want to say, I'd just like to go back a little to Councillor Lewis-Jones's question about safe routes. John Tushenham is absolutely right. There is no guarantee that we can find safe routes to school. He's absolutely right also to say that under those circumstances then we have a duty and an obligation to provide free of charge transport to the schools. Speaking as someone who has walked one of the walks on what must have been one of the dreariest, most miserable days of last year, I certainly wouldn't want any child of mine to be walking that particular walk, but I am reliably informed by others that there are other alternative walks. I've yet to walk those, but I certainly will. And if in our view and the view that is identified in terms of the protocol for these things establishes that these routes aren't fit for purpose, then clearly we are on a bound and legally bound in a sense to provide public transport, and and I will give my assurances and back that very strongly. So that's just I thought it was necessary to dot the I's and cross the T's on that. What I'd like to say is this, that we've all listened to the officer's report here this morning and the questions and answers that have been generated by it. And I thank you all for your input. But I'd particularly like to thank Gwenaira for her input because it's been, in a sense, both forensic and robust. It comes as no surprise to me because Gwenaira has been foursquare against our proposal since the outset, and indeed she's been very, very robust and vociferous in expressing that opposition. I'd like also to congratulate, if I may, the Victoria Village School Parents Group, chaired by Steph Williams, on the way that they've conducted their campaign in support of the school and indeed in opposition to our proposal. They've been, we have to say, they've been most organised. They've been assiduous in mustering the facts of their cases. They see them, very articulate in their written submissions and most eloquent in the dialogue that we've had with them over the piece. I merely echo what I've said before in other places and to other people, and that is this, that I'm very, very impressed and heartened by the display of community spirit that underpins all the efforts of that particular group. However, I'm bound to say that I firmly believe there is a compelling case for our proposal. As an authority, we have a duty to consider what is in the best interests of all our learners right throughout our borough and in the longer term as well. We need to devise and implement plans that are consistent with this duty, and I think that the plans that we have and the proposals that we have do just that. Also, under the Wellbeing of Future Generations Bill, we have a statutory obligation that any such plans must be mindful that future demand should not be compromised by anything that we do in the present. I believe that our proposal and the 21st Century Schools programme that houses it fulfills this wider obligation as well. So whilst it's not a decision that we take lightly, or that I take lightly, I nevertheless commend the proposal to the Cabinet in the honest belief that this is the right and proper thing for us to do. I move to accept the recommendations.
Thank you for that, Dave. Thank you for that, Dave. Is there anybody else that wants to make a comment? Now, if you keep on, I'll have you removed from the chamber. We've tried to conduct this properly. Is there anybody, other Cabinet member, that wants to make a comment?
I just need to pick up the point on safe routes. There is no alternative route. Believe me, I've lived there for many, many years. I know each and every part of that, part of walking, riding, cycling, you name it. There is no safe route to Garnteg School for any of our children. So that's a very serious thing you need to take on board here today. If ever there was a child had a serious injury because they had to travel to Garnteg School, it's on your conscience, not on mine.
Well, right, I've asked everybody. I think we need to draw this to a conclusion. Now, can I thank David Yowell, who acted in an exemplary manner on this in terms of his communications with the schools. He's done everything possible to understand and to grasp the issues, and he really, really does, I can assure you that. So I'm going to put the question now. David have moved it. I'm seconding that we take the recommendations of the officers. Please show. Right, thanks for that. Thank you for that. Sorry, Grenada. Can I ask who's against? One against. That will be recorded. Thanks very much. Can we now move back to the beginning of the agenda? Move now to the agenda. We've done the declarations of interest. We're now on to item 4, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of December. Right, I'll move on to that. Page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, and page 12. Somebody move those minutes? Thanks very much for that. Now then on to item 5, which is just the action sheet. Any comment, Chief Executive?
Thank you, Leader. They're there for information unless members have any questions.
Thanks for that. Any comments, any questions you want to ask to the Chief Executive? If not, we'll move on.
Okay, thank you, Leader. I don't know whether the mouse is right or left-handed now. Seems to have a mind of its own. Okay. I'm just going to take you through the financial plan in 16-17, 2020-21 report. It'll be the last report Cabinet receives on next year's budget, and a substantial part of 17-18's budget, which is a significant factor in itself. I'll come back to the key messages. The background is well rehearsed, continuing public sector austerity, and a plethora of new legislation that the Welsh Government continues to put upon local government, the broad thrust of which we would all agree with, but it isn't coming with any funding. Final part in the background, we obviously have the three clear priorities now from members that have now been articulated into the corporate plan, and the report was approved at last council. In terms of the provisional revenue settlement, minus 1.4 all Wales, around £60 million of cash out, a range of reductions across Wales. Ours was minus 1.7, a reduction of just over 2 million, and we're describing it as less worse. You can't describe a cash reduction of that size as being a good settlement, but less worse. The outcome agreement grant has come in, and the better than expected settlement was largely because of increased money for schools and increased monies for social care. And in that latter one, I do think the Welsh Government community, both through the WLGA, Directors of Social Care, and a variety of other bodies, have had some influence in terms of Welsh Government thinking around social care, and perhaps looking across at England and seeing what's happening there, which is not very good. So the settlement better than expected, but we're regarding it as less worse. In terms of the financial targets for the next 2 years, 16-17, 17-18, those were agreed at your December Cabinet, and they're just repeated there. And then a table then summarises the final settlement and the modelled council tax increase at the time, and takes out the savings from the corporate work streams. And it shows at the bottom of the table in 6.2, at this point in the report, some money for policy headroom, for policy choice from members, and similarly there's a smaller figure still available for 17-18. Then we go into the mitigations, and we're looking at those. And the first part of this section talks about the scrutiny proposals. Scrutiny didn't support 23 of the original proposals, which are across 10% for all service areas, or 2%. And of those 23 over these 2 years, 20 have not been taken forward in these proposals. So I think that puts you in a good position in terms of scrutiny. The three that have gone forward, one was in relation to school catering, which was putting school meal prices up and effectively selling the service or extending the service to secondary schools. There was a saving around youth service, where I think there was some misunderstanding. That was around a voluntary redundancy, where a staff member wanted to go. And in democracy, mayoral and members, similarly, it's gone forward, but at a much reduced level, and it's only largely in respect to the unexpected voluntary redundancy there. Also, scrutiny made some recommendations about wanting a lower increase in relation to cemetery fees, and the saving in respect to PCOs to be taken other than alternatives in PSSU. And these proposals take account of those, and they also ask for an increase in respect of the mitigation for the community farm, and again that has come through into the proposals. The corporate mitigations are repeated again there, and we've done a lot of work so far in terms of the new administrative and business support service, so we're driving that saving, but there's the bottom one there around income, procurement, transport, which we really need to drive now and move forward on those. So then, the service mitigations, which have been agreed by with individual chief officers, are attached as Appendix 2, and they detail mitigations for 16-17 and 17-18, and we've never done that in this council before. In terms of the member policy choice then, in relation to what the discipline that we've applied to the process allows, this is the policy choice and the political steer I've had. Protecting schools to the plus 1.85%, allowing for falling rolls, that amounts to 757,000, supporting by baselining and base budgeting the increased cost in the LEA around school improvement, providing some resource to Sue around the national living wage in the care sector, so that Sue can engage, effectively with that sector to maintain it and have some resource to back that up. Some savings in relation to adult community learning and the reduction in the Families First grant being supported. The investment in keeping the borough cleaner and greener, that was the proposal Duncan put forward for the area-based approach. That was what Duncan wanted, so that's been put in full. A relatively small amount there in relation to the Education Workforce Council registration fee, introducing the living wage, an allowance for that. We reduce the council tax, and then there's the remainder is around the financial resilience and underpinning support for the mitigation targets. Basically, that's saying that over a couple of years we've got a lot of mitigation targets. We've got a lot of timing issues in some of those. We don't know where the pay award is going to go, and what you don't want as members is me coming back and destabilising your budget. Therefore, that is an element there within 16-17 that allows us to buffer that. Should we not need it in a base budget sense, which we hope we don't need certainly all of it in a base budget sense, that together with the base budget saving around the minimum revenue provision falls forward into 17-18, and that then gives you some member policy choice next year to further invest in your priority areas. Final key area of policy choice, of course, is the council tax increase, and it's there at 3.95% for 16-17, which is a lower increase than it was for 15-16. Then there's the table on what the actual budget proposals will give, and then there's a big section on the report on the medium-term financial plan, which I won't go into in any detail. But basically, as members, you'll be in a position of having an agreed budget for 16-17, really good financial plan for 17-18 with a lot of mitigations already agreed, and then a forecast for the next 3 years, and a chance to get started on that in the spring, looking at 18-19 and beyond, rather than now. There's then a section on risks. The only one I'm going to bring out is we're going to be setting our budget on the 1st of March, and the final revenue settlement is going to come out on the 2nd of March, and the Assembly budget is going to be on the 9th of March, all of which feels a bit strange, but I will caveat the Council report sufficiently. I doubt you will change. You wouldn't be changing your council tax views or anything like that. So as long as members, when they make the decision, are aware of the risks and implications, we should be fine. The reserves policy is there, and there are no changes in that. There's a lot more guidance now out there for members, helpful from the Welsh Government on the questions you should be asking around the transparency of reserves, and we should be using them. And then comes the capital programme, and the capital programme continues the theme of 21st century schools that we've referred to earlier today. The one point to draw out is in 12.2, we have allocated an additional £1 million. I don't know why something's come up telling me to add a sticky note now to the report. Really didn't want to add a sticky note at that point. That's right. An extra £1 million in relation to highways improvements for 2016-17. So that really allows the programmes to continue, because we've had prudential borrowing from Welsh Government for a few years. Then we had our own self-generated prudential borrowing in 15-16 and £1 million of capital for 16-17 to keep that going. The equality impact assessment is being done. but at this stage has highlighted nothing that doesn't allow this to continue, and obviously the full equality impact assessment report will be part of the final budget proposals. So in terms of going back to the key messages within the report, which I clearly can't do very quickly, so I may as well have just carried on back as I was doing. In terms of the key messages, the settlement is better, but with a like-for-like reduction. It's less bad. We've got some authority corporate measures that have been agreed. All services agreed to set the budget mitigations for 16-17 and 17-18. We've got a revised medium-term financial plan. The budget approach has allowed members to exercise policy choice, and the council tax for 16-17 is 3.95%. Capital programme is continuing with 21st century schools. We've got an additional allowance in relation to highway improvement schemes, and the reserves policy is highlighted. And that's it, Leader.
Thanks, Nigel. Any comments? Anne, do you want to say something?
Yep, I'll obviously go into it in more detail in Council if it's passed today, but I just wanted to say a few things very quickly. Nigel rightly points out that the settlement is less bad than we expected. But still, I always make the point, if you'd have come into the building 6 or 7 years ago and told us we had 2% almost less cash than the year before, you'd have got some ashen faces. So that just shows how used we've become to trying to deal with cash reductions. And I would thank Welsh Government for listening to the voice of local government this year in Wales, and to working with us to try and protect local services. It's a stark contrast really with what's happening over the border in England, where local councils are gainfully struggling again against massive cuts in their budgets, gainfully trying to hold on to the very fabric of local services. So I think it's a credit to the Welsh Government that they've listened to our voice this year, especially in the area of social care, and they're trying to work with us. It's good that we continue that listening process, looking downwards from us as well as to us. I think it's good that we've been able to listen to the scrutiny process this year. It was a very good process this year, I think the best we've had yet, with members, both Cabinet members in our discussions and backbench members in scrutiny sessions, able to really look at the proposals that we put out in, the options I should say, that we put out in the autumn, and really have a proper discussion about those, as opposed to a series of set-piece speeches. So that's very welcome. And as Nigel said, we've been able to take forward 20 of the 23 areas that they had most concerns about. But that doesn't detract from our need to be strategic as well. I think if you looked across Corporate Plan 3 and you looked across the areas in bullet point 8, we've tried to put our money where our priorities are, put our money where our mouth is in those respects, put more money into schools. Approaching an extra £1 million will be in our schools next year, despite the fact that our settlement is getting cut in cash terms. In social care, we've responded to the concerns they rightly had about the impact of wage rates for contractors, and how that could have made them make £750,000 of savings that would have hit the vulnerable. And we've been able to step in there, as well as being able to take out some of the least palatable social care cuts from the options list we had. On cleaning and greening, I think we've recognised this year, both in the corporate plan and in the budget, hand in hand, that neighbourhood services have really struggled because of the concentration I think we've rightly put on social care and schools in previous years, but that's really had a squeezing effect on neighbourhood services. And I think this investment this year will help them to keep the valley cleaner and greener. You also mentioned the capital funding in respect of road surfaces. That's a massive problem across Britain, not just across Torfaen. It shows that we're trying to put a bit of money in to try and at least start to address that problem. The other priority I think we've taken forward loud and clear with this budget is that we're a council that values our staff. Councils throughout Britain again have had to make some very difficult choices when it comes to our staff. It's anyone who stood up and said that there's no difficulties or that we could guarantee an easy future for our staff in local government would be being misleading. We can't guarantee that. What we can say is that we value them and we value the job that our staff do in running vital local services. And I think the registration fees for our hard-working learning assistants in schools, and also the commitment we've made to the proper living wage, not the fake one sometimes espoused by George Osborne, is a way of showing to our staff that we do value the work they do, and that we want to work in a spirit of partnership with them and their unions, and a spirit of respect as well. On council tax, as Nigel said, the increase this year proposed is lower than last year. I hope that's a sign that we're trying to balance our responsibility to provide local services with our responsibility and our recognition that people are hard-pressed, and that people haven't got a lot of money at the moment, and we're trying to limit the increase in council tax. I think the increase this year will work out at just over £3.50 a month for a Band D property. So we are, whilst recognising that we have a responsibility to safeguard local services, we also have a responsibility to try and keep council tax rates as low as we can. I would like to say one last word about our own Assembly member, Lynn Neagle, who really has, from the very start, carried the flame of local services in the Assembly, even when it wasn't even when it wasn't popular sometimes to do so. She's made the case, especially for social care and schools and local services, and that's to her credit. I would commend this budget. I look forward to debating it in council, and I look forward to showing how it represents both our ability to manage the finances of the council well, and I thank Nigel and his staff for that. And also it shows our values as a Labour council, that we will stand up for public services, we will stand up for our residents, and that we will fight for a fairer future for those services.
Well done, Anthony. Excellent overview of the situation. It proves obviously that you have a grasp of it all the way through. John.
Thank you. I would echo everything that Anthony said. You know, thanks should go to himself as well, Anthony, and to the department and all the officers for making the best, really, of a bad job, really, as you say, a less worse situation. And I think we should applaud, really, the Scrutiny Committee as well for what they did, the Joint Scrutiny Committee, for coming and identifying, really, all those concerns that we as Cabinet members had as well. And they highlighted that, and we were able to address that. But what we've also done, I think, is within this budget, as I said, best of a bad job, but we've responded, I think, to those members of the public, to the elected members, where we get most of our complaints. And we're addressing that through green and cleaning, through education, and through social services. So I think that, you know, given the circumstances we're in, we haven't done a bad job. And thank you, everybody concerned, for that.
Anthony, another point?
I would like to very quickly just echo that point. Both thanks to Cabinet and backbench members for their input in both Scrutiny and Cabinet. Also to Lynn Williams and the Scrutiny team, because I think they really ran excellent sessions there. And also to the public, I think is one of the key things we did this year, is we tried to get out to people, to speak to them in libraries, in shops, in the market, in places like that, to listen to what their priorities were, and really let that influence both our corporate plan and our budget. So thank you to those people who took part. It was over 1,000 people in total, so thank you.
Well done.
Is about the £1 million extra for highways maintenance. I'm thrilled about that. It's not enough, but you know, we can make good use of it.
Make sure you spread it out, John. Right, anybody else? If not, then see the recommendations. Are all agreed, Joe? Thank you for that. We're on now to item 7, which again is Table Lily.
Thank you, Leader. This is our last monitoring report to Cabinet for this 2015-16 financial year. It is based on forward forecast using the month 9 actual and commitment position. It's a very short report and builds on the prior reports you've had. On page 46 of the report is a table summarising the position we find ourselves in. So across the services, we are showing a £1.2 million underspend, forecast underspend on the services. And on top of that, we have a underspend on the minimum revenue provision, where we changed our underlying criteria for this 15-16 financial year. So that's showing an underspend of £881,000. Principal change changes over the month 6 report that you saw are outlined in 5.3, and they're mainly around a grant that was received unexpectedly from within the Education Service, social care and housing, continuing to hold vacancies effectively throughout the year, and again receiving some additional grant funding, some unexpected income through there. The social care position is slightly offset by a contribution that we've had to make for disabled facilities grants in the capital programme, where that actual spend line in the programme is forecasting at the moment a slight overspend, of 100,000. So that is going to be funded through from the revenue account. And then over a page, on page 47, this just makes a commentary on the planning position, where the service is holding some vacancies ready for 16-17 and the difficult choices we've had to make there. And there is a commentary there on community services, which has seen a deterioration in its financial position, mainly due to the poor weather affecting visitors to the cafe in the Cumran Farm, and also Torvine Training seeing a reduction in income from Welsh Government, the Welsh Government contract they have. Next couple of paragraphs they show and comment on the savings that were made and the risk that has been put against them. Again, most of the savings have been achieved or are in the process of being achieved. On page paragraph 5.7 at the top of page 48, it just outlines the alternative savings that have been put through as a result since the month 6 report. Paragraph 6 then talks on capital very, very briefly, and capital is forecast to spend online. There's the minor change on social care, with the forecast of 100,000, which is going to be funded from revenue, and there's a £100,000 underspend on neighbourhoods, where the adverse weather again has stopped us doing all of the highways work that we wanted to do. So that's had an adverse effect there. And also there's a brief commentary, or a sentence commentary, around the Pontypool settlement programme, where the programme came to an end, and unfortunately we didn't spend all the money, so we've had to let that go back to Europe. So the conclusions there, we are showing a very healthy position for 15-16, and it'll stand us in good stead for 16-17 and beyond. And the recommendations is the review of the report.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody want to make a comment? No?
Yeah, just one.
Dave?
Towards the end there, you commented on that there was an underspend regarding the settlement, and money's had to go back to Europe. Could you elaborate on that?
Sorry, it was the Pontypool settlement area, so it's a wider grant where there was money under earmarked for redevelopment of Pontypool Town Centre, satellite programmes in Trevethy, and the main area was the redevelopment of Pontypool Market. For one reason or another, I haven't got the details, there was an underspend which had to be released. We couldn't spend them on the criteria that was defined by the grant, so that money had to be returned, or not spent, not returned.
Would there be any kind of detail available?
I can get the detail and I'll pass it on.
Sir Anthony, you want to come back in?
Just very quickly, just to say that, obviously this forecast is a lot better than having to deal with in-year overspends, but just to emphasise the point that this money is money that's can be invested back into services in the future, and it's very key that services see it in that way, that an underspend is something that is unpredictable within the budget of £167 almost £1 million, and that they need to be reinvested back into services.
Right, I think we all accept that. What agree the report show? Thank you for that. Meet Local Government Wales, and Anthony is going to present this report. Thanks to the Chief Executive for working with Anthony Younger. It's an excellent report, Anthony. Over to you.
you got the report up there starting on page 51. Thank you to the Chief Executive who helped draft the response that we've got here. I've got one addition to add to Chapter 9 of the paper, where an addition to paragraph 9 in our response was going to add the statement that in 2010-11 we set up the G5 to enable the 5 local authority cabinet members for social care to meet together regularly and take up issues with the health board. This is a response that is intended to very much give our opinions on the bill as it stands, and to voice issues where we have concerns with some of the proposals going forwards, and issues where we're in agreement with the direction. So unless anyone's got any particular questions, I'll leave it at that.
Everybody all right with the recommendations? See that? Okay. Paul Shaw, please. Thanks for that. Workforce planning. Graham Russell. And I think the Chief Executive might want to add something during this process. Right, over to you, David. Graham.
This document brings forward the new workforce plan for 2015-18, and it needs to be seen within the context of the Council's corporate plan. Clearly what supports the corporate plan are some key measures, some key building foundations around the budget and the use of financial resources, asset management plan, and the people or the workforce plan. So what this does is to attempt to look at the workforce issues as they affect the Council, looks at what we have at the moment, what we ideally need going forward, and then it assesses the gap between and brings in action planning and then implementation towards moving in that direction. The approach that we've taken, as this is probably the first time we've produced such a formalised document and a structured document as this, is that there's been largely a top-down process, but very much informed by extensive engagement with service areas and with managers, and also going through processes with trade unions, and then through a scrutiny process. The report was taken to Resources Overview and Scrutiny just before Christmas, and their views and thoughts have been reflected within this version of the report. What the workforce plan does is it doesn't provide all the answers on day one. What it provides is a framework within which all our people-based activities should be seen. So it's very much about a cultural shift in the way we think and in the way we use the staff and the workforce, ensuring that they're supported in the best possible way and that we're using them to support the service priorities that the Council identifies. So the document very much provides a map to show the people tasks and how that all fits in to a wider picture. It doesn't provide the final picture. In terms of the scope of this document, then the sort of areas it covers are outlined in the report, so that you'll see that it covers a little bit about the context of the corporate plan and of the budget, but it also refers to some of the wider context in terms of key significant legislative changes being brought forward. The document then looks at a little bit about the Torvine profile. So it does talk about the numbers, the headcount within the workforce, the numbers of full-time equivalents. And it does make reference to the gender split It has some information there on workforce profile, also in terms of average age, and in terms of the fact that significant numbers of the workforce are maturing, in the sense of we have a very low percentage of staff under the age of 25, and that in itself brings challenges for us in terms of growing our own and bringing forward the future generations of public sector workers. It also picks up on key issues around sickness and those sorts of themes. It talks about some of the challenges we face, and it also sets out some of the behaviours that we would be looking for our staff, that we would expect from our staff. An awful lot of that is about context, though, so that what the report then moves on to is to look at half a dozen key themes, and those key themes are based around the items just there on page 69. Building an excellent council, a skilled and adaptable workforce, leadership, engagement, both with the workforce and with trade unions, and then health and well-being together with schools. So those are the 6 broad themes around which the workforce plan is based. What we've then done within the document, and this is why it's a 2015 to 2018 document, this sets a clear foundation for moving forward. And a lot of what we've done within the past 6 to 9 months helps start to provide that foundation and provides important context for what comes next. So we've included some of the things that we have done under each of these 6 broad themes, and that's set out in the main document, which is the appendix to the report. And then what we've set out is, I would describe it as an aspirational list of all the component parts that we think we need to make progress on as it relates to the workforce, that will help and support these 6 themes that we've got. So it's a little bit about, well, where have we got to so far, and what are the things we need to be thinking about going forward? There's an awful lot within the things that we would like to do. And being realistic, they're not all achievable in a short space of time. So there does have to be, were you to agree this plan, there does have to be a more detailed consideration about the priorities and how much we can do over what sort of periods of time, and whether we need any additional resources to support that. Notwithstanding that, however, what was important is to identify the broad, almost overarching type themes that we will have to make progress on. And those are identified there towards the bottom of page 69. And some of these are particularly important. Firstly, in the sense of and I draw on the very first one there, largely top-down I've described the process so far. We need to embed the process of workforce planning. So what comes forward in the future is that service areas, when they're looking at service delivery, they're looking perhaps at budget mitigations, they are factoring in the staffing implications and requirements to perhaps a greater extent than has been the case so far. So there's a need to embed the workforce plan at a more detailed level than we currently have. There are then other key drivers, such as legislative change, such as the Future Generations Bill, Social Care Act, Welsh language, all of which will raise particular requirements and challenges and require us to do things supporting the workforce, developing the workforce, and ensuring that they are best equipped to support the corporate priorities that we have. There's then matters around efficiency and the business review, making sure that our internal processes that support frontline service delivery are as efficient as possible. So there is the administration and business services review in there. Also the living wage. That were members to agree it through the budget process, then that will be a key requirement that requires careful consideration in the mechanics of how we introduce that and the impact it has across the workforce. The other couple of areas are perhaps slightly already well established in that there is work going on with them, and they are things around ongoing review of HR policies and procedures, and that is a standard rolling programme, but they underpin a lot of the officer workings within the council, and so that ongoing programme is particularly important in progressing and can have very significant impacts and in a positive way, such as in the managing sickness absence changes that were made over the course of the past year. Not surprisingly, maintaining attendance levels and managing sickness absence is included in there as well, as is ongoing development around work smart appraisals, which is seen as another key important strand. All of these priorities are fairly broad and wide-ranging across all service areas, and as I say, subject to approval and onward agreement by Council, then a more detailed implementation plan would be worked up, with subsequent reports being brought back to members to record progress on that. So what it does, it doesn't give all the answers, but it sets a clear direction. It provides a very important framework, in my view, to identify what we need to start looking at and how it fits in to the wider framework of developing and supporting the workforce, and provides perhaps a route map for more intelligent workforce planning.
Right, thank you for that. Anthony, you want to make a comment? Oh, sorry, there is one thing, I just forgot that the Chief Executive wants to include in this.
Thank you, Leader. I've had a message from Councillor Jeff Rees, who's asked me to draw to the Cabinet's attention a consideration before they make a decision on the plan. So I think the best thing is if I just read out the email. Councillor Rees says, Anoil Allison, last week the Welsh in Education Forum met and considered some matters, one of which was the Council's proposed workforce plan. After some discussion, the Forum made the following recommendation to Torfaen Council. We recommend that the Council makes Welsh language fluency mandatory for some jobs, for example in frontline customer service areas, to ensure the Council can meet its obligations under the new language standards in the most efficient way, and that the Council's workforce reflects more accurately the population it serves, there being about 10% of the local population Welsh-speaking, while only 2% of the Council's workforce is, according to Council sources. It may be worth considering feeding this recommendation into Cabinet discussions today, and I am writing this email to you in my capacity as Chair of the Forum. So, Leader, I thought if members are aware of that, they could consider how they want to respond.
Anthony?
Well, I think Roman numeral 3 of 6.1 deals with that, really, where it commits to continue to address the staff and implications arising from a Welsh language scheme. So I think that I would note that that's addressed in there. And the only other point I wanted to make was just to thank Graham and his team for the calm and methodical way they've dealt with this, and also to thank the trade unions for their input.
Let's have a discussion on this, because it's late in the day to be sending an email. Should have been discussed elsewhere. You can interpret what Anthony just said in Roman numeral 3 as addressing that, but let's have other members' views. So, any members got any views on this? Do we accept what Jeff has sent in as this late time, or do we consider that Roman numeral 3 on 6.1, is it? On 6.1 is adequate to accommodate that?
I take on board completely what the Deputy Leader said. I think Roman numeral point 3 more than covers it. But at a future date, I think there is a debate over the Welsh language to be had. In times of increasing financial pressures and the demands being put upon us, I think this Council has to reflect and look strongly on what we do and don't provide. And I know there's a whole debate around the standards, not only within this Council, with other councils. So, short answer, yes, I think Roman 3 covers it, but a wider debate at a later stage.
Right, you got that. All agree on that? We have a discussion. He needs to bring it, sure. Thanks so much. He can bring it back in a different form if you don't consider that's adequate. Right, now then, move the report. We remove that that little bit which catered for Jeff. Just move the report. All agreed? Thanks. Thank you very much, Graham. We're now on to draft procurement strategy, and I think this is Andrew Macy, is it? Come on, Andrew. Come on down, as they say. Right, over to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Leader.
Andy, I should say. Go on.
Thank you. And is the price right? Procurement? Very good, Leader. I'll take you, I think, very quickly to the key messages, or at least some of them. This is Torvine's second procurement strategy, and it aims to build on, the success, really, of the first procurement strategy. The procurement strategy obviously needs to support the Council's new corporate plan, so it's been designed in that way. Interestingly, obviously, the National Procurement Service for Wales is increasing the number of arrangements we can use. So as time goes by, we'll be making more and more use of those. So that allows me to concentrate on the more strategic side of procurement, and to look at possibly, looking to manage demand and that kind of thing, really, as opposed to dealing with organising the stationary contracts and the like. The new procurement strategy needs to make sure that all procurement exercises comply with the Council's policies regarding the Wales procurement policy statement, and we get asked to comment on where we are throughout the years on those policy statements. Needs to take into account well-being of Future Generations Act and Welsh language standards. So all of those things have been built into the new strategy. The basis of the new strategy is, as you'd expect, similar to the old one, because obviously, procurement hasn't changed in its way, but we need to factor in some of these new things. And it was interesting, we had a bit of a session last week regarding the Future Generations Act, and I think we would be working in the right direction with trying to cover that. I think one of the issues that came from the auditors was probably to look at how we would service, really, collaboration amongst the public sector in our area. And, that's something we'll pick up, I think, as we move forward with our annual plans. So the strategy covers a number of main aims for improving procurement over the next 3 years. And they've been set out in the draft under 12 headings. I won't go through all of those for you because there's quite a bit there. But moving on, really, sort of very quickly to the conclusion, I think Torvine can make further progress improving procurement across the Council by adopting this draft procurement strategy, and we'll be able to continue to make savings over the next 3 years. And more importantly, because I know it's important to members, really, to look for added value in relation to sustainable development and to embed the requirements of those, the Wellbeing of Future Generations Wales Act. And we'll learn as we go on. And obviously, on an annual basis, we're able to set targets and plans for the following year. And that's it, very briefly.
Thank you. Any comments? Anybody? Anthony?
Sorry, someone's got that. Sorry, it's me speaking lots today. Just to thank Andrew for his report and for the work he's done on this.
If not, then please accept the report. Please show. Thank you, Andrew. Next item is school. No, we done that. We have done that, yeah. Application to register a footpath. This is Duncan Smith or one of his team. Come on, Duncan. I didn't see you there. That shirt blends in with that chair.
Can you all hear me? Basically, this is quite a complicated case, and it goes back some time, but I'm going to confine myself to what's happened over recent times. An application was made to the authority to add this footpath to the network. You, as the Cabinet, turned that down, an inspector that was appealed, and an inspector upheld that appeal. So effectively, the authority is bound now to make the order, or put the order in place. And that's what we intend to do in a neutral fashion, given that we opposed this in the beginning, and that we believe that the footpath was removed from the register back in the 50s, but never officially removed. It remained on, unfortunately, which was a mistake. We are where we are. We've had a late correspondence in today from a Mr. Gwilym, who actually supports the removal of the footpath. He argues that there's new evidence coming, or new guidance coming out from Welsh Government shortly that may change the way an inspector would look at this. Unfortunately, that wasn't available to the inspector who's made his decision, and that decision is taken, so we have to go with that. However, Mr. Gwilym will have an opportunity, once we make the order, if he wishes to object to that order, it will be heard at a public inquiry again, and Mr. Gwilym will have an opportunity then to put his case forward. Thank you.
Well, this has been about a long time, a long time. Right, anybody else got a comment? No. John? No? Right, Lewis.
No comment.
Right, thanks very much. And all agree the recommendation, Sean? Thanks for that. We're on now then to, again, the item 13, which is approve the setting up of an integrated transport system. This is, what his name, Steve? Yeah, no, I know him. He's all right. He knows me as well. Go on. Over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Leader. If I could just talk briefly to the report. If I could take members to the purpose of the report, is to set up an integrated transport unit within Torfaen County Borough to bring together the transport functions we currently carry out to ensure effective and efficient service provision, those services currently being fragmented across the authority. Within the background section, it's noted that the issue was raised by the Senior Managers Task Force Forum. Also is something that officers and neighbourhood services have been considering for a period of time. Within the issues and findings section, the quantum of potential savings is noted, and indeed Nigel referred to those earlier on in his presentation. In terms of consultation to date, the item has been subject to scrutiny consideration. Scrutiny were keen on the idea, didn't have any particular in-principle objections to progressing, wanting to be kept informed and such like. Also, we've been talking to the relevant departments and officers within those departments about the proposals. Fair to say there's general support for pressing this forward. So finally, just to take members to the recommendation that we look to set up an integrated transport unit within Torfaen County Borough. Thank you, Leader.
Any comments? John? All right, all agree with the recommendation, Sean? Thanks very much. Thank you very much. Now then, now we've got my old favourite coming down. How are you, Sue? Now then, we're on to item 14, which is the governance requirement, social services and wellbeing. This is Sue.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, members. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read the report and the attachments, so I don't want to spend too much time, bearing in mind that the time that we have spent this morning already. Just to remind you that the Social Services and Wellbeing Act is a real significant piece of legislation and making lots of changes to the way we operate both on the front line, but also the bit that this refers to is how we operate strategically. And this is Welsh Government's intention to help us think about how do we work on a bigger footprint, and the footprint recognises the Health Board footprint. And this report is to advise you of the Part 9 of the Act, which talks about cooperation and partnership. My other recommendation is that we have regular reporting to both Cabinet and scrutiny as the implications of the Act become real. I mean, we've spent the last year just establishing what the Act actually means, receiving all of the legislation. Many of you would have been at the member seminar I held last year, which gave an overview of the Act, and there are lots of parts that will impact directly, but this is particularly about Part 9. And what I'm seeking for is you to delegate to myself, in liaison with Richard Clark and Linda, the finalisation of the terms of reference, because as we were meeting this year, we were in an interim situation as a regional partnership board, and it was only January that those final guidance documents came out. So we're only at the very end point, so we need time to just refine what that end point says, the final guidance, to change the terms of reference. Just to pick out the key messages there, you know, the duty is now there as a statutory regional board, so it isn't something we might opt out of, it's something we have to do. It's set out in statute now, comes from the 1st of April. And if I highlight there under 3.1c, one of the main reasons for setting this regional board is to think about what can we do better in terms of integrating services across health and social care. And if you look in the detail of the appendices I've supplied, under page 262, they highlight their particular areas where they're expecting us to integrate. And that could be integrating at a service delivery with perhaps joined up teams, or it could be pooling budgets, or it could be one organisation taking the lead as a lead commissioner or service provider on behalf of others. But obviously we haven't made any of those decisions yet. This is firmly about the establishment of the statutory body. And if and when we come to those decisions and proposals to integrate and get into much change in the way that we deliver services, I would bring that back as separate reports, so you'd be involved in thinking about what that means for Torfaen. And the areas that they've defined at the moment are, you know, we shouldn't be surprised by this: older people with complex needs, people with a learning disability, carers, including young carers, the integrated family support team that we've already have established on a regional basis, and children with complex needs. The one that is missing is mental health for adults, but there's already a separate piece of legislation enacted, the mental health measure, which prescribes us working in that regional integrated way anyway. So it isn't an admission, it's covered by another act. I didn't intend going through any of the other detail, but happy to pick up any questions. I guess the key, another one of the key things is under 5.2, although we're working on a regional basis, it doesn't take away the statutory role that the Council has to appoint a statutory director, and for that director to publish the annual report. So all of those arrangements still stay in place. But obviously the expectation is that you won't just look at what are the needs of Torfaen. You'll start looking at how do we aggregate some of that thinking and service delivery on a regional footprint. Happy to take any questions. I've set out there at 5 some of the risks.
Thank you, Sue. Any comments, Rich?
If Sue turned... Oh, it's worked. I think Sue's hiding a light under her bushel here. She's been leading on this for Gwent with her colleagues from other authorities, and the story of the report says it's something that we're required to do. It's something that Sue and colleagues have taken steps a while back to form a partnership. Yes, we have had to wait for the formal guidance, but through her hard work and constant hours of rejigging reports and what have you, we're in a very firm position now. They say if I'm allowed to say this, given the emails that have been bouncing around, the devil's in the detail, and that's what this report is about. I think we're well positioned in Gwent. We've had Gwent Frailty. The G5 already exists for the Health Authority. We do work closely. I don't know how many meetings a month I have with my colleagues of other councils and the Health Board, but I'm confident with Sue's continued leadership and the detail that we will now forward, that we can go on forward from this position, and I commend this report to you.
Good. Anybody else? If not, then all agree the report show. Thanks very much.
Good. Thank you for that. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the good news on this one is we've already been working in an informal way to try and think about the needs of looked after children as they approach adulthood. So, you know, the legal position is that once somebody is 18, obviously they're no longer a child. But for some individuals, they may not have acquired the skills in terms of being independent. And what the When I Am Ready policy and practice enables us to do is to work with relevant youngsters as they're sort of 16, 17 to start assessing how ready are they for that independence. And if an existing foster carer agrees that they will provide board and lodging, because they will no longer be a foster parent, because obviously you're dealing with an adult now. You know, they'll have an accommodation arrangement, and this policy sets out how we will get to that position. So it gives a much better life chance for young people who may have been in the care system for a significant time, you know, may not have other family members or friends that they can call on, and this gives some additional support. And hopefully what this will enable us to see is the life chances of those individuals, whether it's education, whether it's training, whether it's work. They should go on to have a better opportunity by providing this sort of additional support. I mean, there is a cost, obviously, because we have to pay those foster carers who won't legally be called foster carers a fee for supporting those youngsters, but they will be able to claim any of the relevant benefits and will be able to make a contribution into the family home, and they'll be treated as an adult living in the foster home rather than a child in a placement setting. So those, you know, I think it's a very positive step forward. It's the right thing to do. It's something we've been trying to do for a couple of years, but it's been difficult previously because we didn't have the legal framework to do it. This now gives us the legal and the policy framework to do it. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, can I just say thank you for the report. It's such a welcome report, as Bob has said. Some years ago, we were invited to a care leavers conference, and they asked if some of us would take part in a question and answer session. I come away from there absolutely beside myself with some of the things that these young people were telling us. Two, which remained with me, seemed forever. The one was when we gave them vouchers, when they were moving on to buy paint or whatever, they would be going into stores, and one particular store in question, I won't name that here, but they were told to stand aside because we will deal with the voucher people later. What a stigma. It was absolutely horrendous. And the other one was, we're not ready to leave our care homes, our foster homes, we're not ready to move on yet. Some were, but the majority weren't. They needed that extra bit of care, and we were setting them up to fail. So I absolutely welcome this report, and I just feel sad for the youngsters that had gone on before that had to move out before we could help them. So this is certainly moving in the right direction. Thanks, Sue.
I commend the report. I'm not blessed with children, but at the end of the day, I'm a corporate parent, as we all are elected members around the table. And wouldn't we do the same for our own children? My parents might have wished to get rid of me and my brother at 16. They would have willingly opened the door and thrown us out. They were stuck with us till we were in our 30s. But it's the right thing to do, and I commend the report to members.
Can I just respond to Gwynaira about the issues of when people weren't previously ready? That was one of the reasons why we built up some of our step-down facilities, like the hostel, Hayes House, to provide that. You know, we couldn't leave people in a foster placement. At least it was somewhere where people could work together and build up those independent skills. But this will give us another range of options to support youngsters.
All agree with the report, Joe? Thanks very much. On to the next report now. I'm going to have to leave on this one, which is the disposal of a lease. The young lady who's the daughter of the person that is making this application is the girlfriend of my grandson. So I obviously know her and meet him frequently. So I'll leave. Can I just say before I go, I want to commend on the other issues that have been discussed this morning, that the way the office has operated and acted in a very responsible manner, in particular in relation to the school issue, but also in relation to the other issues as well. I won't come back. I'll go out and have a cup of tea.
Kevin. If I can call on Victor then.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Hopefully this report will be less onerous than any that you've considered previously this morning. It pertains to 2 industrial units at Tikok Industrial Estate. In total, the Council owns 3 units. I presented a report in December relating to the disposal of one of them, and this is relating to the other 2. We've received an offer to purchase the smaller of the 2 units by the tenant who occupies both units. They would have liked to purchase both of them at the same time, but because they are also expanding the business, for cash flow reasons, they're only able to purchase one at the moment. But they're also looking to renew the lease on the second larger unit for 3 years, with an option within that lease to purchase the unit within the duration of the lease. So the price provisional agreed for the smaller unit, which they want to purchase immediately, is £180,000, which will entail a loss of rent of £18,500. The price for the bigger unit, which will go into the lease, subject to approval this morning, for this afternoon, is £550,000, which will mean forgoing the rent in the new lease of £70,000. So the recommendations are firstly to declare both units surplus to council requirements, secondly to approve the disposal of the smaller unit for £180,000, and grant of the 3-year lease for the larger unit with an option to purchase at £550,000. And finally, that any issues that require determination regarding the disposal be delegated to the Deputy Leader as Executive Holder for Resources and Governance. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Victor for the report and move its recommendations. Anyone else want to speak? No, can I have a show then? Thank you. And that's meeting closed.